Wisconsin football has been known for pretty much everything except the quarterback position. They've had many star running backs, a ton of great offensive linemen, and pretty much every position on defense has had many big names. Even the tight end position has been great for them. Unfortunately, both the receiver and the quarterback spot have not, but the subject of today's video was supposed to change that narrative. He was a blue chip quarterback recruit who chose to go to Wisconsin over schools like Georgia, Notre Dame, Alabama, and Oregon. He was a borderline 5-star recruit, was seen as a future NFL draft pick, and in his first career start, he lit up the college football world. Unfortunately, from that moment on, things only went downhill. Yes, we are obviously talking about Graham Mertz, and right now, there is a firestorm going on in Madison, Wisconsin. So in today's video, I thought it would be a good time to take a look at the rise and fall of Graham Mertz. We're going to talk about how he became such a big deal, his Wisconsin career so far, and what ultimately went wrong for him. But before we get started, be sure to hit the subscribe button as we're on the road to 100K. Leave a like if you want to support the channel, turn on notifications so you never miss when I upload, and let me know what quarterback prospect I should take a look at in my next video. Now, let's get started. In order to understand what went wrong for Graham Mertz, we first need to go back in time. He grew up in an athletic family as his dad played football at Minnesota, and he grew up a huge Golden Gophers fan. He said, quote, "My dad played at Minnesota and my mom went there. I grew up there. I know the program very well. I visited there quite a bit, and I get along with everyone there." This would end up becoming a bigger deal later in life, but for now, he was blessed with good genetics and a father that knew how the college football world worked. Mertz was going to be a good high school quarterback at Bishop Meade High School, but he was stuck behind a guy by the name of Carter Poots, who was the Kansas Gatorade Player of the Year before playing baseball at Notre Dame. He'd end up transferring to a different high school and would arrive at Blue Valley Northwest. He was hyped from the very beginning, as his head coach said, quote, "The first time he saw him at school and in his first workouts, he just had a presence about him. You can just tell when there's something about a person, and he had that factor to him." Midway through the year, he had gained offers from Kansas, Wisconsin, and Minnesota after only 6 varsity starts. He was a solid quarterback, but he would make an early commitment to the Wisconsin Badgers. Since he was only a 3-star player, this went under the radar, but a huge junior campaign would change everything. He threw for 3,684 yards and 45 touchdowns, and leading his high school to their first state championship in program history. He was a high school star, but now he was becoming a recruiting star. Mertz said, quote, "It's been a crazy year. Going from being a backup praying to get reps, I was praying 3 months that God would show me what to do." Well, there'd be options for him. Schools like Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, LSU, Michigan, Notre Dame, and Miami would all offer him at some point, and Wisconsin fans were terrified, and Mertz didn't know what to do. He said, quote, "I've been committed since last October. I've been happy this whole time, but it's just been awful stressful with all these great opportunities. It was hard." With big time offers coming in from all around the country, Mertz and his dad would make an Excel spreadsheet to try to figure out which school was best for him. Amongst all the factors, they included the feel of the program, locker rooms, quarterback development, coaching staff, culture, relationships, and education. After a very confusing process, he would visit Wisconsin over the summer and reaffirmed his commitment to the Badgers. He said, quote, "Everything just kept validating my decision. Honestly, it's been a stressful process, but I'm more than happy with my decision right now. I can't even tell you how relieved I am." He credited the staff, the winning, the culture, and the fellow recruits, and he was happy to be a Badger and ready for his final year of football and for life to get back to normal. Despite graduating every skill starter around him, Mertz was even better as a senior, as he threw for 3,886 yards with 51 touchdowns and even missed a game and a half with injury. The guy was a star. The hype would only grow as he was now a borderline 5-star recruit and would get invited to the Army All-American game. He'd end up becoming the MVP of the American game as he went 7 of 14 for 188 yards with a record 5 touchdowns and no interceptions. He put on a show on one of the biggest stages, and this would spark a discussion of whether he should join Spencer Rattler and Bo Nix as 5-star quarterback recruits. One scout said, quote, "He's a talented kid for sure, and I'm sure that question will be asked, but is he a 5-star? I'm not sure he's a 5-star talent, but it will be an interesting debate." He would not end up getting there, but he still became a state legend. He finished number 4 all-time in the state's career passing yardage list and number 2 on the career touchdown list. For his career, he threw for 7,570 yards with 96 touchdowns. His coach was not at all surprised with his balance of skill and mental ability that would make him so good. He said, quote, "I knew in our offense he'd be highly productive, but then you add in his character and his value with X's and O's, and the sky is the limit. It's like talking to a great running back and putting him in an option offense. You know he's going to have production, but how good is it going to be?" With a pass-centric offense, the sky was going to be the limit for him, and he obviously flourished. Wisconsin fans were saying he was the best quarterback since Russell Wilson, and they were so excited as he became the highest-rated quarterback recruit to sign with them since rankings began. According to 24/7 Sports, Mertz was a 4-star recruit, the number 3 pro-style quarterback, and the 65th best player in the class of 2019. So, how did he do at a school not known for developing quarterbacks? So when Graham Mertz would arrive at Wisconsin, he would be thrusted into a quarterback battle with 3 other players. Those guys included Jack Cohn, Danny Vandenboom, and Chase Wolf. Many fans wanted the hyped-up freshman to be the guy, but the coaching staff ultimately decided to go with Jack Cohn. Mertz said, quote, "We all know that competition gets the best of us, so we couldn't ask for a better group of guys. We love each other and we want to grow as a group, and we think that competition will bring us to the best level that we can be." So Mertz would end up becoming the backup to Cohn, who would actually have a pretty good year, and Mertz would appear in 2 games against Kent State and Central Michigan, completing 9 of 10 passes for 73 yards without a touchdown or an interception. After Cohn's solid season, many expected him to be the starting quarterback in 2020, and that is exactly what was going to happen until he got injured. Because of that, Cohn was not able to play the entire season and would eventually transfer to Notre Dame, giving the opportunity to Mertz to take over in 2020. In his first game against Illinois, he'd have one of the best performances in recent memory. He'd complete 20 of 21 passes for 248 yards and 5 touchdowns without a single interception. This was one of the most insane performances we have seen in a long time, and now all of a sudden the Graham Mertz hype had become unreal. Not only could a quarterback thrive at Wisconsin, but he could also put up big numbers. In week 2 though, things would start to settle down. On the road against Michigan, he threw for 127 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then a week later after that, he threw 3 interceptions in a loss to Northwestern. We got to see the best and worst of Mertz in that first 3-game stretch, but things would not get any better throughout the remainder of the year. He had an interception without a touchdown in a loss to Indiana, had an interception without a touchdown in a loss to Iowa, and then neither threw for a touchdown or pick in a victory over Minnesota. After his 5-touchdown start in week 1, he finished the regular season with 9 touchdown passes and 5 picks. Because the season was very weird, Wisconsin ended up getting to play in the Duke's Mayo Bowl against Wake Forest, and they won 42-28, and Mertz would combine for 3 touchdowns, 2 of which came on the ground. For the 2020 season, he finished with 1,200 yards passing and 11 scores with 5 touchdowns. For how wacky of a year it was, there was both brilliance and disaster from Mertz, but 2021 was going to be a chance for him to prove to the world that he still had it in him. Unfortunately, that's not how it would go. In their week 1 matchup against number 16 Penn State, he threw 2 interceptions, one of which was in the last minute, and they'd end up losing 16-10, and the team would already be behind the 8 ball. After a pretty bland performance against Eastern Michigan, he would throw 4 interceptions in a loss to Notre Dame. Through his first 3 games, he had 6 interceptions and 1 touchdown, and the Badgers were 1-2. Things would not get any better in their game against Michigan, as after he threw for a touchdown, he would have a scary injury, and he'd be out for the remainder of the game. In that game, he had injured his chest, and he actually had to go to the hospital. Something changed in the hospital though, as in his next 6 games, he'd win 5 of them, throwing for over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. His best performance came against Rutgers, as he threw for 240 yards and 3 scores. Mostly because of true freshman Braylon Allen, Wisconsin had a good record, but they lost to Minnesota in their final game and would miss out on the Big Ten championship. They'd still get to play in the Sun Bowl, where against Arizona State, Mertz would throw for a touchdown and a pick in a 20-13 victory. In year 2 as a starter, Mertz finished with 1,900 yards with 10 touchdowns and 11 picks. He also had 4 rushing scores. There was still a lot left to be desired for Mertz, and he's going to have to put up or shut up in 2022. So how would he end up doing? Well, in week 1 against Illinois State, he threw for 200 yards and a touchdown. In week 2, his weaknesses were on full display, as he had 2 touchdowns and a pick in a home loss to Washington State. This was definitely not good for him, but in week 3, he'd somewhat redeem himself, as he had over 250 yards and 3 scores in a dominating victory over New Mexico State. Mertz would once again be put on the biggest stage in week 4, as they go on the road to play number 3 Ohio State. This was one of the worst performances of his career, as he would not even throw for 100 yards, and he had 1 touchdown and 1 pick. He did at least have a score on the ground, but the Badgers were completely dominated 52-21. This past weekend was sort of the final straw for Wisconsin, as it looks like they're going to move in a new direction in every way. Brett Bielema made his return with Illinois, and in that game, they would dominate from start to finish. The Illini won 34-10, and in the process, Mertz threw for 200 yards and 2 interceptions. He got sacked 5 times, and this was one of the worst home losses for Wisconsin all time. On the year, Mertz hasn't even thrown for 1,000 yards through 5 games, and only has 8 touchdowns with 5 interceptions. To me, it pretty much seems like he has not lived up to the hype, So what has gone wrong for him? Well, I came up with 5 reasons. First, it's the coordinator/system. After having Rudolph there for a couple of years with him, they moved on to Bobby Ingram, and this year's offense does not look good, especially in the passing game. Having a bad coordinator is no good. Second, I'd honestly blame it a little bit on wide receiver talent. There are a lot of quarterbacks in college football who can get away with bad passes or not being perfect because they have athletic receivers that can bail them out. Wisconsin is not known for that, so not having those receivers or playmakers makes Mertz's job a little bit more difficult. Third, the turnovers. This guy has become an interception machine over the last few seasons, and when you turn over the ball, you're going to get benched, and you're not going to win football games. It's a lack of confidence with no one to push him. Wisconsin does not recruit very well at quarterback, and with all the talent Mertz has, there's not really anyone who's going to push him for that job, so he may not have to work as hard or have that fire under him to get better, and combining that with how the team is done and the state of the offense, he's kind of lost his confidence. Who knows how that injury affected him also, and overall I think there's definitely something going on mentally there. Finally, I think he just picked the wrong school. As we've all said, Wisconsin is not known for developing quarterbacks or having a very passer-friendly offense, so ultimately Mertz should have went somewhere where his skills could have been used better, and maybe he just shouldn't have gone to Wisconsin. Nothing against the school. So overall, those are my 5 reasons why Graham Mertz has struggled and why he's ultimately become a bust compared to his height. But what do you think? If you're a Wisconsin fan, what has happened to Graham Mertz? What do you expect from the team and the program moving forwards? And what player, topic, or situation should I cover in my next video? Be sure to let me know down below. Leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen, including my video about the rise of Braylon Allen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.